Welcome to Be a Blessing with Mitch and Wendy, a no-holds-barred guide to being the best you can be so that you can be a blessing to your family, friends, and everyone you meet. Be a Blessing is about life, from parenting to building a business and building yourself. Mitch and Wendy will cover it all. So buckle up and prepare to get uncomfortable because growth only comes from the other side of a challenge.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 3 of Be a Blessing with Mitch and Wendy. Episode 3 already. 3 episodes deep, and we have a special guest in the studio. You all know Producer Frank. You've never seen his beautiful face, but you've heard us talk about Producer Frank. We have the even more beautiful Producer Frank's wife with us today. So I don't know her name yet. Did you tell me her name? What was her name?
Brandy.
Brandy, welcome to the studio, Brandy. So today, episode 3, we're going to expound a little bit about the struggle of blessing. But before we do that, I want to talk a little bit about something that occurred the other night. First of all, she's getting, did you just see the nervous look in her eyes? So first of all, I don't know if you've noticed, but I've gotten a haircut. I got a haircut. I don't look like Conway Twitty anymore. The curls are...
Conway Twitty circa 1980.
Hello, darling.
The helmet.
Nice to see you. So we knocked off some curls here, so Conway Twitty's gone. So I got a haircut. And the other night, we were having some intentional conversation with our sons. One son was to my right. One son was to my left. Wendy was across the room in another chair, nearly drooling on herself at this point. It was about 8:05 and her bedtime's about 7:42.
Struggling.
I could see one eye like dipping off. And so we were talking about baseball. My sons play baseball. My older son's been playing baseball for many years. My younger son's just recently kind of got reinterested into baseball. And I was trying to convince him that he should try out for pitching. He was not having any of it. And in the midst of me going back and forth as I was talking, because Matt, our older son, was giving lessons about pitching and trying to give him a pep talk, and I'm going back and forth. And at some point, my younger son is like, oh, Dad, you got a bald spot. And it freaked him out. And I said, hold on. I said, it's not a bald spot. I said, it's getting a little light back there. It is getting a little thin. I said, but it's kind of been that way for a couple of years. He's like, well, I've never noticed it. And I could see Wendy getting, like, she went from like half drooling to like, oh shit. Like real quick, she got real nervous. And I'll tell you why she got nervous. Because my thinning hair has kind of been a sense of, or a source of insecurity for me for quite some time. Now, my boy, Producer Frank's rocking it. He's got a beautiful beard, and he's no hair on top. If I had a beard like Frank, I wouldn't care. But my beard's, it's nice, kinda, but it's always been this sort of insecurity. So I could see the concern on Wendy's face. Oh my God, how's he going to respond to his son pointing out this insecurity? And I just told him, I was like, no, man, it's been like that for about 3 years now. It's just been getting lighter and lighter. And I said, you just probably caught it at the right angle in the light. But yeah, man, that's what it is. And it kind of freaked him out. I think he's worried about having a bald dad. I don't know if he's worried about the kids picking on him at school. I'm not sure. But anyway, insecurities. Insecurities are like the worst. Like, have you ever met somebody, and I think Deacon's got the gene and he got it from my dad. There's a gene that's passed from generation to generation of individuals who have a gift of pointing out other people's insecurities. No. You know what I'm talking about? Mm-hmm. I feel like I'm the only one talking here. You want to join in on the conversation?
You're carrying the weight right now.
No, but
continue.
Let's talk about that. Insecurities. We got a few moments here. I want to just. Have you ever been in a situation where someone's pointed out your insecurity and you wanted to punch them in the mouth?
Oh my God. Like when you're least expecting it, like, hey, old high school classmate, haven't seen you in 20 years. Oh, yeah, in fact, I put on about 30, thanks, appreciate that. Or What's another one? You know.
So I'm gonna point out some Wendy's insecurities, and I'm gonna be that guy.
No, hey, no. Listen, that's not even the topic of discussion today. Let's stay on point.
Well, this is part
how
of the
many
point.
minutes we got left?
So part of the point is this is be a blessing, and we're talking about ways to be a blessing. One way you can be a blessing is by not being a jerk and pointing out other people's insecurities. So Matt Deacon pointed out my thinning hair, but here's what's crazy. Like my dad was pointing out my thinning hair before it was even really thinning. Remember that?
Like 15 years
like when
ago.
when I was 16, he's like, "Oh, hey, whoo, it's getting thin up there, boy." I was like, "Dad, I'm 16."
and it was so thick and lustrous. I have no idea.
But I'm fortunate. I got the curls up front, so it kind of hides it. But my father had the gift of pointing out insecurity. He did it to Wendy a few times. In our long tenured history together.
Oh, we got another grandbaby on the way. And I was like, what the hell are you talking about? Oh yeah, that's the best. That make any woman feel top notch.
Yeah. My sister, one of my sisters has the gift as well. She did the same thing, and it's like, so all that to say, first of all, I'm glad that I'm at a point in my life where this particular insecurity doesn't bother me like it did at some point. So at some point we can all get to a place where we don't really care. It's like, don't give a whoop. It's fine. It is what it is.
Those things don't become insecurities anymore.
I can't control it. It is what it is. It's out of my control. There's other things that I'm focused on, and so whenever you get to that place in your life where those insecurities don't bother you anymore, even when the jerk bags come along and point out those things, he's like, hey, it's been like that. It's fine, no big deal. So don't be that person. If you have the gene of pointing out other people's obvious flaws, like, you're not being a blessing. Be a blessing by just zipping your mouth and compliment them.
Because I'm sure they think about that more than you realize.
Yeah.
That's something that really, really does. They don't need us to add to it.
Definitely. So anyway, you can comment on my thinning hair next time we see each other in person. So anyway, getting to the topic at hand.
The real topic of discussion, because insecurities could have been a whole podcast in and of itself.
We'll come back to that at some point.
Yeah,
we'll use it. So today we want to talk about the struggle of blessing. And I was driving to work the other morning. I had a long drive, and as I was driving to work, I was thinking about how many of us have this desire, this want for God's blessing. And we told you that while this isn't a religious podcast, that there's going to be some religious overtones because we are people of faith. We love the Lord. I cuss a little, but I do love Him, and I drink some every day sometimes, depending. But nonetheless, I was thinking about how Jacob in the Bible struggled with God to be blessed. I don't know if you know that Bible story, but there was a Bible story in the Old Testament where right before Jacob's name was changed from Jacob to Israel, he literally wrestled all night long with God. And it's the form of God. It was a man that he wrestled with, but the Bible clearly tells us that he was wrestling with God. Now, whether that was Jesus, this isn't theology. You make your own assumptions. But he would not let go. And the person that was depicted as God was like, hey, let me go. I got to get out of here. The sun's coming up. Wrestle time's over. And Jacob, whose name was eventually changed to Israel, said, I will not let you go until you give me your blessing. So he blessed him. He touched Jacob's hip, and from the rest of his life, he walked with a limp because he was injured. And I just thought about, man, how many of us aren't willing to really go through that struggle with God? Like we want God's blessing. We have maybe a vision for our life. Maybe we don't even know what the blessing is, but we want it. There's something that we're wanting that we're not getting. And we begin that process of struggle, but we give up too soon. We give up too soon. We're not willing to go through the pain. Like Jacob literally had to, his name was changed, everything about him was changed, but even more so, he was pained the rest of his life, and that always reminded him of that struggle to get God's blessing.
Absolutely. And just to remind you, we don't talk about this. We don't try to talk about our dialogue before we get on camera, just because we want this as organic as possible. We don't discuss anything. And I like what you said there, because that is what I do find is a lack of, amongst society as a whole, is a lack of grit perseverance, a lack of endurance to be able to take hold of what you want in life, whether it's God's blessing, the job promotion, the dream for your life, the thing that, whatever it is. And to kind of piggyback on what you're saying, Mitch, I found that society, again, as a whole, has been conditioned to live in this Jeff Bezos world of, I want what I want in that package delivered at this time, and I expect it. And we almost view our prayers to God that way. This is the prayer I want. I want it in 2 days. I want it delivered in this package, exactly what I prayed for. And when that doesn't happen, people crumble.
Yeah. And by Jeff Bezos, she's referring to Amazon.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so her and I had a conversation, Wendy and I did, about how we live in this Amazon Prime conditioned world where everything is instant gratification. And we've lost the art of long suffering. We've lost the art of fighting and determination and persevering to get what we want. And I just think, man, I think there's a lot of people who are watching this. If you're like me, like, my life is a story of perseverance. And some of you don't know my story, but I came from a rough background. My mother died when I was 5 years old in a house fire. She was a drug addict. My dad was a drug addict and alcoholic. My sister and I were almost in foster care. Luckily, my grandmother took us in. And then at some point, my father met a woman who was a good person, started taking us to church, and raised us in the midst of a very dysfunctional home. So all that to say, my dad was a cattle farmer and he baled hay commercially. And so from the time I can remember till I was old enough to drive a tractor or big enough to stand up and drive it, I worked. I didn't do all the fun things like play summer sports or do all the fun things the other kids did. I worked in a field, worked cows, worked hay, did all those things. And I could remember as a kid, as I would be on a tractor, my dad would drop me off like at 7 in the morning. He'd give me like 2 packs of crackers and a thermos of water. And he'd like, all right, I'll be back whenever the sun comes down. And so I'd be on that tractor all day long, like at, as a 11 or 12-year-old. And just seeing all the cars pass by if I was happening to be cutting hay or working in a field near a highway. And I would imagine, I wonder what this family's going to do and how good their life was. And I just would start imagining what they were going to go do and what their lives were like. And what if I was there with them? What would my life look like? I wouldn't be in this field all day, and I wouldn't have to go back home to all the crazy dysfunction. And that started a journey for me of perseverance, of chasing after this blessing, of God's blessing of changing this generational curse in my life. And it didn't happen overnight. You've been a part of that journey and that struggle for the last 24 years, like we talked about in episode 1. But it didn't happen overnight. Like, it took years and years of work, of determination, of changing the way that I think, changing my habits, and not giving up. That's gotten me to where that I am today, and I'm still trying to go beyond. But so there's this idea of struggle that I think so many of us, we just give up. And you know how many times I wanted to give up?
Many.
I mean, you probably heard me.
Many. I mean, how many times you were depleted, you had nothing else to give? But I think it was important to note that even if it was private or publicly, you failed your way to success. Because you didn't fail, you took those experiences of failing and use those, and you learn from them. He didn't start from scratch. He was starting from experience, like that little meme that's going around. And it's important to note that you never got it on the first time. You never got it on the 50th time, nor the 100th. It was getting up every day and pounding pavement every day and doing it over and over again. And I think that that's important to character building, because we can see, as business owners, we can see when, especially I'm a testimony, things came easy to me. I didn't grow up very wealthy. I didn't grow up like Mitch either. But things came easy to me. I don't know why. I would think it and it would happen. And then I became an adult and things didn't always work out my way and I couldn't cope. I didn't know how to deal with it. I didn't have the grit, the perseverance. I didn't have endurance, and it would shatter me. I didn't know what to do, and good thing I had a partner who came from some life experience to help pick me up and help recenter and refocus me to be able to, through the struggle, to get the blessing. Mm-hmm. And even then, I still struggle these days. I will not ever self-profess that I've got it nailed down by any means.
Yeah. It just, the struggle, I think, is where we all fall short, a lot of us, when it comes to not realizing the full blessing of God. It's just, I can't stress it enough. Like right now, I know there's people who are watching this who they're trying to accomplish something in their life, or there's something that they're doing, and they're probably pissed off at God for some reason, like it's not happening fast enough. That's okay. That's part of the process. Because what you're going to learn, and what I've learned and what I am learning now, is that it's not the destination, and this is cliche. It's that process of getting to where you're trying to go. That right there, that is what life is. Most of your life experience, all the things that you're doing as you're trying to get to that place, that's where you're living. That's where the living happens. And then when you finally get to that place, you're going to be like, oh, hey, this is pretty cool. I like this. And then guess what the next thing's going to be? There's going to be some next destination that you're trying to go. And then that's where you're going to be living that life again between this point and to the next point.
And think about everything in your life. If you just take a few seconds to think about what it is that you're so proud of that's in your life. Anything. It didn't come easy. It was a process. And you should be proud, because you look back and you're like, wow, that was hard and I did it and I got here. And to know that it's honorable to be able to forge those paths, reach those destinations, and then turn around and see somebody trying to do the exact same thing you're doing, mm-hmm. and lending a hand.
Yep. When I think about our marriage, right? Think about the struggle from when, let's take out the dating part. We kind of hit it on that on an episode 1 about, all the, the nonsense of me not knowing what I wanted. But once from the time we got married till today, think about the struggle of marriage. Like, how many times did you want to just probably punch me in the throat?
As many times I've offered him, I was like, hey, you want to take this and square up in the yard? I'm ready for it.
Yeah.
No, all jokes aside,
there were some difficult, like our first year of marriage, we lived out in the New Orleans area. Wendy, for whatever reason, had lived away from home, but whenever she moved to New Orleans, like...
I still had this big umbilical cord.
Like, she literally cried every day. Oh, she cried every day for 9 months. I would come home. At the time I was in a seminary going to the undergraduate program, and I bartended at Copeland's. That's how I made my money to survive. And Wendy was a nurse at a hospital there in Metairie. I would come home every day to a crying wife. And at first it was okay, like, we're going to get through this, And finally, at some point, it was like you ever saw a dog that was looking at another dog that was dead and it didn't understand it, and it would just kind of like stared and was like, I don't know what to do. I'd kind of gotten to that point where I'd get home and I had said all the things that I could think of saying. I'd given all the pep speeches and pep talks, and it's just nothing was working. And then I hit a breaking point. So we lived in Metairie, we had an apartment, and then we decided to buy a house in Covington, thinking maybe small town, that would change the scenery for her. And we bought a house. We were young. It was our first home. I was excited. And she was still crying. And I was like, I cannot do this anymore. I don't know what else to do. And I literally broke down in the bathroom one day, crying like a 6-year-old, just sobbing, snotting, and you can go from there.
And I remember him saying, Wendy, I don't know what it's going to take to make you happy, but I'm giving you every ounce of me. And I don't care where we live. I don't care what our circumstances are. As long as I still have you, I'm going to be happy. So I'm willing to sacrifice everything in order to make you happy. I don't know what happened, but that moment, it flipped in me. And I was like, this man really loves me. Like, this man really loves me. I know without a shadow of a doubt. I know he loves me because he would give up his life for me. I know that. But I decided at that moment, I'm not a little girl anymore. It's time to be a woman, and it's time to be a wife. And this man deserves a wife and a woman. And something flipped inside of my head when I saw him just completely crumble on that floor to get it together.
Yeah, powerful moment. So many instances in our lives. When I was trying to get a state form, they rejected me 4 times. And then finally on the 5th time, when they gave me the opportunity to open office in this area where we lived and we didn't have to move away, it would have been easy to give up. And that led to eventually opening this independent agency, Atalease Insurance Agent. And last year, opening a brand new agency in the midst of a pandemic and not knowing what was going to happen.
I gotta say, I was impressed with you at doing that.
It'd have been real easy.
16-hour days you were working.
Yeah, it'd have been real easy just to say, I don't know what to do. I quit. It's a pandemic. But just stay the course. If so many of us would just stay the course, wrestle through the blessing, how much different would our lives look?
It's important to note that Jacob, to know that his hip was going to be dislocated and he was going to walk with a limp. Whatever that blessing was, whatever his why was, superseded the pain of the moment, superseded that wrestle. He knew that the outcome was greater than that moment.
Yep.
And he forged the path.
And it was worth the pain.
And yeah.
It was worth the pain. So stay focused, persevere, wrestle through the blessing, and don't give up, because I promise you, if you don't give up, you at some point you will get to where your mind and your heart is leading you. And it'll be better. Your marriage, your career, your parenting, whatever it is that you're desiring God's blessing, man. I had some heart-to-heart with God the other day because I was getting frustrated with some things, and in the midst of me thinking through this. And I was like, God, I want you to just, like Malachi says, open up the windows of heaven and just pour it down. And it was raining like a mother at the time. And I was like, I want it like it's raining. I want the blessings to fall like it's raining right now. I said, but even if it doesn't, I'm not going to quit, because I know at some point it will be that way. Like, you're going to manifest what I'm desiring in a way that's going to be powerful and is going to demonstrate your glory. So, and he has, man. I mean, I have been so very blessed. Wonderful wife, beautiful kids, health, a great business, producer Frank. I mean, we got this podcast, all 18 viewers. I mean, life is good.
We're growing from 3.
Did you flip them off?
I didn't mean to. 3 to 18.
You see what she does at the house. She's always behind my back, just sticking me the bird. Anyway, hey, so we're about 20 minutes in. This is episode 3. Before we go, Wendy, what's one thing of value you can leave with our listeners or viewers?
If you think you can or you cannot, you'll be right. The mind is a powerful thing, and just like we talked about in episode 2, goal setting, it's very important that you watch your circle of influence and your entourage, because that's important to the struggle. Everybody will tell you, look, hey, it's okay to give up. It was you tried, you did your very best, and keep going, guys. Keep going.
Keep going, yes. Hey, check us out, www.mitchandwendy.com. She had a hippie mom who didn't smoke pot, but spelled her children's names with I's. Really weird. Love you, Miss Totsy. So www.mitchandwendy.com. We're going to continue to build out that site. You can get the podcast there. We're going to launch a Facebook at some point, a Facebook group. I'm just going to say it'll be called Mitch and Wendy. Hopefully there's no other Mitch and Wendy out there using that name. If they are, we'll beat them up, and we'll take it from them.
We'll arm wrestle them over it.
Producer Frank, thanks for your time. It was lovely meeting your wonderful bride. Thanks for joining us in the studio. Hey, be a blessing, and we'll see you for episode 4 in a week.